Hello, everyone, and happy International Women's Day. I know we're a day early, but a great day to celebrate on a Friday. Welcome to our webinar on breaking boardroom barriers, navigating your NED journey. I'm Sarah Ingwerson. I'm Managing Director at the SR Group, the parent company of Taylor Root, Fraser Jones, Brewer Morris, Carter Murray, and Keller West. And I'm delighted to welcome you all here today. Thank you so much for joining. We have over 450 registrations today, which is absolutely incredible, and I think indicates the really real issue that women continue to face obtaining a NED appointment. However, it is not just men dialing in. We also have a few male allies joining too, so welcome and thank you very much for your support. It would be great to see where you're all dialing in from today. This is an international webinar, and we're conscious that we have a global remit within the SR Group. So if you could just use the chat function to put in your city and country just so that we can get a sense of the community that's supporting us here today. So according to the recent FTSE Women Leaders Review that some of you may have accessed, female NEDs in the FTSE 350 are now virtually at par with their male counterparts at 49.9%. And this is fantastic traction because in 2011, it was only 9%. And that also correlates to 15% of executive directors being held by females, which is really positive. So things are heading in the right direction. But what this webinar is about is where do you start your NED journey? If you're wanting to obtain a NED role, how do you go on embarking on that journey? So that is what we are here to discover. So the format of today's webinar will be a Q&A session with our lovely three panellists you can see above. I'm just about to introduce them. And we'll hopefully have time for questions at the end. So please use the Q&A box during the chat or during the webinar and direct who the question is for. So in terms of our panellists, it is my great pleasure to introduce our three panellists today. Firstly, we have Tara Ricks. Tara is the co-owner and partner of Elite Leaders, the network and advisory consultant to the recruitment business leaders. And Tara is also the NED of our parent company, the SR Group. And she's supported in a NED chair and board advisory capacity for other businesses looking at growth and exit strategies. Welcome, Tara. Thanks for joining. Joanna Burnett joins us. Joanna is the Group Treasurer at Straumann, the world's largest dental medical tech specialist. And previously, Joanna was at Page Group as their Group Treasury and Chief Sustainability Officer. Joanna is a NED of Riverside Finance and spent 5 years on the board of the Association of Corporate Treasurers. Welcome, Joanna. Thank you. And finally, we have Rachel Tranter. Rachel is the founding director of Women on Boards UK. And I think a lot of you are familiar with Rachel and the fantastic work that they do. With almost a decade's experience in non-executive board recruitment, Rachel advises recruiting boards on their requirements and approach, and also supports members on how to excel during the selection process. Rachel sits as an independent panel member for the Ministry of Justice and was previously an independent NED of the Amateur Football Association. So thank you all for joining and taking part. I'm sure you all agree that we are in excellent company today to have this very important discussion. So before we kick off this Q&A part of our webinar, I'm going to start with a poll. Anybody who's joined one of our webinars knows that we love a poll. So Egle in our marketing team, if you can please launch that for us. The question that I would love to know, and we would all love to know, is I am joining this webinar because I aspire to be a NED. I aspire to support females on their NED journey. I am already a NED. We'll just have a couple of minutes so everyone can answer that. All right, I'm going to close the poll now. So far we have, let me see. Are you able to share that, Egle, with us? We had 83% people aspiring to be a NED, which I think is very encouraging that obviously a lot of you are here to hear the insights and inspiration from our three panellists. So hopefully there's some useful anecdotes for everybody joining, no matter what your reasons or motivations are. So we're going to start with hearing about the personal journey of our panellists and the routes that they have taken to achieve their NED role. Joanna, I'm interested to hear what inspired you to pursue a NED role and what was your career journey leading up to it?
So I don't think I actually had a decision, an active, conscious decision that I want to be an NED at the very beginning. I have always had interaction with the board or the audit committee. As a group treasurer, you're frequently talking to the board members. So there was an element of that I was comfortable within that space. But very separately, I was looking at my current role as an executive. What did I have? What were my career opportunities? How could I broaden my horizon and learn new things within a safe and comfortable place? This allowed me to think very carefully within my own community, within my own profession as a treasurer. And I looked to my professional body, and they had an opportunity to join their board through the membership process. And so it just became a natural evolution. I think more recently, there has been a more conscious and active decision to pursue a NED portfolio career. But at those beginning points, I don't think it was an active decision. It was more just the next step allowed me to open that door.
Yeah, an extension of your career trajectory.
Exactly.
Yeah. And Tara, did you feel that there were any pivotal moments or key opportunities that shaped your path to a NED position?
No, thanks, Sarah, and hi everybody. It's great to be here this morning. I think there's a longer journey behind the pivotal moment. I think there is a moment when you realise that yes, I now have the expertise and experience, frankly, to add value as an NED, which of course is an absolute paramount requirement. I think when you have significant senior leadership experience, becoming a NED becomes one of your options. And I think the moments when you've really got that extensive experience, when you know that you've been running a business, you've been managing risk, you've been making key level decisions, you've had strategic oversight, and once you've got those skills, you just my advice is always to grab every opportunity, serve on any internal committee, run board meetings where possible, learn about corporate governance and all of the regulatory requirements in your industry, and grab opportunities to network, be visible, speaking at industry events, support your trade bodies, and just generally leveraging executive experience. I think those are the key opportunities that always need to be grasped if your aspiration is to go down the NED route.
And Rachel, you set up Women on Boards with your co-founders almost 13 years ago, which is quite an incredible achievement because it was quite groundbreaking at the time, wasn't it? Just in terms of that concept. What inspired you to create an organisation that's dedicated to supporting women on this journey?
Thank you, Sarah, and that's a great question. And it's lovely to already hear Joanna and Tara and talk about those moments, because really that's what this is all about. So we set up at very much the same time that back in the day, Lord Davis was asked to do a review of the current situation of females on the FTSE 100 on boards. And we said, well, hang on a minute, this is a fantastic idea to literally lift the lid on the FTSE 100 and see what's going on. But how about we look at everything else? So we were inspired to start digging into what I would now call the non-executive landscape. So away from the FTSE 100, we soon discovered that there were so many opportunities on all private sector boards. What about the public sector? What about the not-for-profit sector? What about sports bodies? So we very much set up to inspire people to think about those opportunities. And what we soon realized, I suppose it's, to put it simply, it's a model, it's the demand and supply. We felt like there's plenty of demand, everything is governed. And at the same time, we felt that people didn't really know about these opportunities. Did people really know that their local charities had boards, committees? Had people really thought that the public sector there were at the time, I think, about 250 non-departmental public bodies that have boards. And on the supply side, we thought, well, where's the talent? Do people really know where the talent is? And the people in the room today are the talent. Go back 13 years ago, whoever the people were there, they were the talent. So we very much set up in a way to match the demand and the supply and to provide the information and the support in the middle.
And you take people through that journey, don't you, in terms of the coaching, the mentoring, the preparation for that process?
We absolutely do.
Yeah.
It's all about really providing access to information, providing support, training. Very much today, I'd say, Sarah, it's all about providing a community, because we're there to support. And it was brilliant to see those statistics. 83% of you in the room today are here because you're thinking about taking your first NED role. But, you know, what do you mean? What's a NED role? It's a trustee, it's a non-exec director, it's a committee member. So it is very much lifting the lid on all of those opportunities.
Yeah, and starting the discussion early as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
Can I echo with what Rachel has said? And I see it from the other side. So did I face unique challenges becoming a NED? No, I don't think I did. I was one of those people, maybe not 13 years ago, but I certainly engaged with women on boards 7 odd years ago, when I was sitting there at that juncture in my executive role, thinking, what next? What's possible? I didn't have a network within the executive, the non-executive community. I also didn't know that much beyond my element of the governance for boards. So I've gone on a learning journey. I joined Women on Boards about 7 years ago. I have been far more active in the last year or two, but I have gone on the learning journey. That they've got fantastic resources of, if you're wanting that first step, what does that look like?
Yeah.
There's opportunity to meet other people who are having the same questions, and you can build your own network out. I'm now part of a Women on Boards book club, and we meet, I think, 6 times a year. We met last week, and again, it's just a different lens. You know, my network has evolved. My needs with the community, such as Women on Boards, has obviously changed. But it is a great first step to be able to answer those what next questions.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think as we all know, and as we've all discovered, that the pathway to obtaining a NED role, whether you have a network or not, can be really challenging for women and also for men. But Joanna, I'm interested, just kind of tapping into what you just said then, whether you found any specific challenges on your journey and how you overcome them. And you mentioned that you didn't have a network, you've had to create it. I mean, how have you gone about that?
I've gone actively to events such as the Women on Board networking events. I have gone to other networking events and opportunities. So if you invite me for coffee or drinks, I'm probably likely to say yes. So be careful with the invitations that come out.
Watch your inbox explode.
But that's just my curious mindset. I love learning, you know, whatever the topic is, I really want to learn. So my way of conquering a topic is to learn and then to put my foot forward. Maybe that's a very female trait, I'm not sure. But for me, I wanted to learn. So I was very passive in my learning for a while, and answering those questions. Am I ready? Back to what Tara said, you know, do you have the skills? Do you think you've got the skills, or do you actually have the skills? And how can you answer that question yourself? And so that's a very personal, individual learning journey as well, and a discovery. And also, what do you want to give back? Going on a board, maybe a FTSE 250 or maybe a AIM listed organization versus a charity is very, very different skill sets. So when are you comfortable with perhaps even evolving your own non-executive journey?
Yeah, I think there are 2 points that came out from there. Am I ready? And do I actually have the skills? And, you know, Rachel, you must come across a lot of people that do have the skills, but also equally those who don't.
Yeah.
And, you know, that must be a difficult conversation to try and prepare somebody for that reality.
Yes, although, and everything that Joanna said, that it's so totally true. You know, it is very much at the beginning, it's question after question after question. And one of the challenges will be, have I even got time to even think about this? And the fact that there were so many people in the room today is, you've answered the first question. You're inspired, you're thinking about it. So don't underestimate the fact that you've got over hurdle number 1. Do we come across people who haven't got the skills? You see, my ethos, the ethos of Women on Boards is very much, there's a board role for everybody.
Right.
You have the skills. However, one of the challenges is number one, pulling out what those skills are, being able to identify them. Never mind the fact that you've got to be inspired to even think about it and actually dedicate the time to start looking. But what are your skills? What are your transferable experiences? What do you care about in life? What are your values? Once you start on that journey, and then identifying if we're in, a lot of people say we'll be thinking about not-for-profit, trustee opportunities. Fantastic. Well, you've got to start then thinking about what you care about and how you can start matching those skills. So if you can invest and take this approach, I therefore don't often come across people who haven't got the skills. Maybe they're not prepared. Maybe they've stepped up a little bit too far. We have to rein people back and say, I don't think you're going to get a listed board role on day one.
Yet.
Maybe you need to think about not-for-profit. Maybe you need to step up to a housing association role. Let's take a journey. And as Joanna said, it's your own individual journey. But it is a case of just matching who you are with what's out there. Simple as that.
Yeah. Simple, very simple. Just an evolution. Tara, I'm really interested in your experience because you obviously are the NED for our parent company, the SR Group, and you joined as our first female NED, and we're all very proud of you and grateful that we have a voice around that boardroom table now. How have you navigated boardroom dynamics and ensured that your voice is heard as a NED, bearing in mind that our CEO might well be listening to this?
That's absolutely fine. I mean, firstly, I would say, actually, to be quite honest, that this scenario is far from unique. So don't be surprised going into, as a female NED going into that world, spoiler alert, you will be in that position quite frequently, changing, but you will be in that position quite frequently. But look, there are effective strategies that you can adopt to make sure you've got that voice and you've got impact. And I think in the spirit of the majority of people on the call seeking and aspiring to go into that route, I think wrapping those pieces of tactical advice into things that I personally have done and I think that work really well. I think it's building strong alliances across the boards that you're on, again engaging with the chair, leveraging side conversations where relevant, championing the key topics that specifically sit within your area of expertise. Owning your space. I think we know that there is much research and much commentary and editorial around the fact that as females, we perhaps don't speak with the confidence or speak up or own our space as much as our male counterparts. And I think that's something that we can work on. That's a talent, that's a skill that can be very much learned. So I think the earlier that you do that, we tend to sometimes use diminishing language more than male counterparts, like I'm not sure, I'm probably wrong, but, and I think tactically educating yourself to stop that. And establishing credibility early on, be confident in the knowledge and the unique insights that you bring into that boardroom and the impact that they will have on the people that are there and the business that you're supporting. And look, preparing thoroughly, you can have more voice and more impact when you digest, fully understand, critique board packs, which, by the way, can be very, very comprehensive. And you take all that preparation into that NED role and you take your data trends, your market intel, your research perspectives, and you own your space and speak with confidence. And I think those are, from a tactical advisory perspective, going into that as a female NED, making sure having voice and impact, those things are really important.
Yeah, that's really on point. Thank you so much, Tara. So preparation, alliances, networking, and I love the one about switching the vernacular as well. And I think that's something that we don't, as a group, necessarily do to the same effect as our male counterparts in terms of the language that we use when we're putting a point across.
It can be absolutely
to be less apologetic with how we present our view. Not it's just my opinion, or I'm just presenting. And Rachel, this probably ties into the sort of advice that you give and the preparation that you provide to Joanna and the community that you support.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, when we first began, we were very much all about supporting people getting their first position. roll on to today, a huge percentage of our membership are people who are on boards. You know, Tara, Joanna, people who need that ongoing support. And I don't think there's ever been a more important time to be part of a community, a broader community, when you're in the boardroom. Because Tara, I'd love to hear what you think about this, because you know you can feel quite alienated, can't you? And so to have and the other point to make here is that you don't need to be qualified to go into the boardroom. You can take lots of different courses if you wish, but you don't need to be. So when you step into that boardroom for the first time, you are on your learning journey. You are learning, but from day one. So boardroom dynamics and getting to grips with that, and then stepping away and really tapping into a broader network of people like yourself is so important. Because if you think when you're in full-on executive land, your network's there. You've got a team. You are potentially part of a corporate team. When you go into the boardroom and you're meeting potentially 6 times a year face to face, what are you doing in between those meetings? Where is your community of support?
Yeah, it's really important. Thank you for that. Joanna, Tara referenced the board packs and how extensive they can be, and the preparation that you need to do before each board meeting, and you know, time in between as well. It's not just about the board meetings, is it? It's about incidences that may arise in between. How do you balance a really demanding executive career with getting stuck into an NED role and contributing wholeheartedly to that?
A really good question. And I don't think I understood the importance of what other non-executive directors were saying when I started my journey. Everyone was talking about conflicts, and it wasn't necessarily, you know, just the conflicts of can I be on, say, 5 banking boards or 5 retail boards. It was about calendar management conflicts. So being very practical, most boards table their agenda for the next 2 years in advance, their strategy day, the board meetings, etc. Now, if you've got a foot in 2 camps, your executive camp as well as your non-executive camp, that's slightly more complicated, because you now need to think about, well, what's happening in my executive role, which may not be giving you that 2-year line of sight, whereas your non-executive career probably will be. And you need to manage those conflicts, because you can't be in 2 places at once. Both, or 3, or however many organizations that you are supporting, will be expecting you to be not only there, but you have read those packs that Tara has just mentioned. So earlier this week, I was at an all-day strategy day for the Association of Corporate Treasurers. Now, I've been on that board for 5 years, so it isn't about I've been there, I've done it before. That pack came out 2 weeks ago. I had other board meetings during that time. I've got my executive career, but I had almost 300 pages of background reading to be able to put in to, I'll call it my working life, my, you know, I've got other responsibilities outside of work. Where do you find that time? So you have to be meticulous with calendar management of known board meetings and known commitments, but also the unforeseen. What would happen if you had an emergency board meeting? Do you have that bandwidth within your day, within your week, within your month, in order to be able to do it? So I think when Rachel and I spoke probably 7 years ago, I was thinking about my days literally as days. If I fast forward to today, I actually think about my year as months, blocks of time. How many months in the year do I have? What have I committed to? For the days, for the month, what is left over? And now it's very, very clear that my calendar manages my life, not the other way around.
It sounds like a Tetris game.
It is.
In terms of having to juggle everything. But how does that work with time commitment from your executive career? If you have an emergency board meeting or have to take time away, do you declare this presumably with your employer? Do you need to get them on board to let them know from the start?
So I have had approval from not only my current employer, but my previous employer about what we class as my outside work commitments. So that is actually part of my employment contract. It's there as I'll call it a right, but I'm not necessarily meaning that, but they are
Yeah.
fully aware of it.
Yeah.
But I also clearly, as an executive, have to prioritize my executive role. That is my foremost priority with what I'm doing. So how do I then juggle that when I'm sitting on a board is a different matter. And so when I joined Straumann just under 12 months ago, it was very clear with the role that I was going into that I would not be able to maintain one of my other additional non-executive responsibilities. So I set up a charity about 2 years ago, now 3 years ago, and I was the executive chair for the first 2 years. As I was talking with Straumann, it was very clear it would not complement my executive role, but it would be a step too far. So I actually actively stepped back from that position 12 months ago because it just was not going to work out longer term. And I knew that someone else far more focused on that work would be able to do a much better job than I am or could.
So would you recommend, if you're going through an interview process for a non-exec role, declaring your non-exec interests or commitments in the interview process so that it can be incorporated into a contract?
Yes, yes. And I think
You're nodding. Yeah.
I think if you look at your current executive contract, it probably already has a clause in there that says that you've only got this as one declared role.
Yes.
So you need to go back to your current employment contract and seek an amendment.
Yes, perfect. So if somebody on this call obtains a NED role, they should then inform their employer so that they can have their contract amended.
Yeah. So, Rachel, would you agree that if you're entering the non-executive discussion, that you should actually be having those conversations with your executive employer at that moment, just to make sure that you didn't, I guess, proceed down to be the board member that could be appointed, and then find out your employer will not actually support you?
Absolutely. Look, we work a lot at WB with people who are obviously they've got their busy full-time careers and they're starting to think about becoming a trustee of a charity. And so just to answer that point, Joanna, absolutely. A lot of people in this day and age are supported by their employers to go and do this. It is a good thing to do. And there aren't many people I come across today who say, my employer won't let me be a trustee of a charity. So it is a good thing and it's a well-supported thing. But should you be upfront and have that discussion right from the beginning? Yes, especially if you're in professional services, because you never know where those conflicts may appear. So having an open dialogue right from the beginning is really, really important. And then the second thing, just to touch upon, the commitment, if you're going to become a trustee in the not-for-profit sector, first of all, you're not going to get paid for it. You are not allowed to get paid for that. So it is a voluntary role. Therefore, charities do not have board meetings during the day. I'm sure there are some somewhere who try to do that, but as a principle, they know that you're all really, really busy, so they will have their board meetings at 6 o'clock in the evening. A lot of charities still do online or hybrid meetings. Yes, you have to look at a job spec, and if it says 4 board meetings, the commitment is triple it. Of course, you've got to be realistic, but it is doable to have that role running alongside your day job. Ask a busy person. They're the best people to take these board roles.
Just on that point then, Rachel, in relation to a trustee position, what is the value of having a trustee role or not-for-profit experience on your journey to obtaining a NED role? Like how crucial is that just as a way of getting in and using it as a stepping stone?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's there were some statistics about probably about 10 years ago now, and I'm sure that things won't have shifted too much. The vast majority, there was some research done by a headhunter, it was over 90% of board members in the FTSE 100 started with a not-for-profit role. It was astounding. Now, I've not followed those stats, but I'm sure it's not shifted too much. So there's got to be something in that. And there are many good reasons why taking a trustee position when you're still in your executive career is a good thing. Yes, it can be a stepping stone. It's not always. I mean, I have people, I talk to people all day, every day, who are pulling their hair out going, I'm a trustee of a charity. If I apply for a role that says previous board experience, why are they saying I haven't got board experience? So there will always be situations where it is not viewed as a stepping stone. But there are many, many reasons why it's such a good thing to do. Yes, it might be simply because you're looking to add back and there's something that you care about. Yes, it could be that you've got to the point in your career where you don't feel like you can extend your leadership credentials within your day job. You're not being taken seriously. So why not go and explore your skills and actually get yourself on a board where you are experiencing leadership potentially for the first time? You're then taking that experience back into your day job. You have a different story to tell. Your narrative changes. You have something to put on your CV. I mean, we do a whole talk about the reasons why being a non-exec director is good for your career. So I don't want to go into all of that now. But the message I want to give to everybody today is cutting your teeth in governance on a not-for-profit board is a really good thing to do for many, many different reasons. Your personal values and also how it can elevate your own personal brand.
And Joanna, you had trustee experience, didn't you, before you embarked on your NED journey? So how did you feel that your skills transferred in terms of being an executive, but just a non-paid executive to being an actual NED?
So the message that Rachel has just said resonates with me and my journey. So when I started on the board of the Association of Corporate Treasurers 5 years ago, I joined in May 2020. And if you don't remember that date, it was COVID. And I can tell you, joining a board in COVID for the first time was a very scary place for what I would say a newly appointed non-executive director. Now, let me hone that in further. The Association of Corporate Treasurers is the global body attached to treasurers. Treasurers obviously manage all the money, the debt, the investments on behalf of very large multinational organizations. We're responsible for those people's careers. We're the people that certify their qualifications. So it isn't just about the business that I was on. It was also about the impact we would have on the members if we did not survive through COVID. So that was one point. But our members desperately needed our help because of the work that they were doing to basically put funding into every organization to keep organizations afloat. So we needed to provide our members significant resources and help behind the scenes to make sure that they were able to personally and mentally cope through that process. So we had an additional responsibility of care to our members through that period. However, you never know where your not-for-profit journey will take you. And let me start. So we had COVID. That was not necessarily foreseen. But through my journey, when I ended up as chair of the board, we had our CEO step down and we onboarded a new one. And so I was part of CEO recruitment. I was then onboarding a new CEO, making sure our most important stakeholders, the Bank of England, the world's largest banks, that our CEO was connected in with the most important bankers in that community. So again, it's about stakeholder skills, relationship skills, making sure it's not about you. It is about the wider business and about the wider team and making sure the business thrives and is successful. Fast forward, any new CEO, doesn't matter what business you're in, they want to set a new strategy. So lo and behold, I was chair while formulating a new strategy. And if we go back to the purpose of my business, we weren't just formulating a strategy on maybe how to grow. It was how for us to set the treasury profession for generations to come. And it's about becoming a chartered treasurer now within the organization. And so again, those skills were not available to me within my day job. I learnt those opportunities it was just unforeseen, and so for me it was absolutely pivotal in my own learning journey. So my soft skills suddenly rapidly expanded, and I would now be very confident if Rachel came to me to say that there was another board that needed someone that had gone through this journey. I would be able to say, yes, I can do that. I have done it before. And here is my demonstrated experience in this success area.
Thank you. I think there's a lot of transferable skills that you don't necessarily envisage when you start out on a trustee journey either, because you can't foresee what might happen to the organisation, the industry, the world at that time. But sounds like you certainly went through a journey with that as well at the time. So switching the focus just a little bit, we tapped into diversity at the beginning. Tara, I'm interested to hear from your perspective, particularly with your more recent experience at the SR Group, about diversity and why you feel it's important in a boardroom to have that diversity of thought, and what impact does it have on decision making and company culture?
Well, quite simply, I believe it to be essential. I think, a diverse board brings a wider range of perspectives, experience, and skills, and for me, it enhances better decision making. It strengthens governance, and it drives better business performances. And there are many studies. There's a key McKinsey study that shows that those companies with diverse boards outperform those with less diverse boards in both profitability and innovation. So, aside from the commercial imperative, which is very self-evident, it also reduces the risk of groupthink and will improve strategic oversight. I think those two key topics of, when it comes to decision making, a diverse board is more likely to challenge assumptions. It will encourage more comprehensive discussions. I think absolutely will ensure that governance frameworks are more inclusive, and gender diverse boards in particular are also specifically linked to higher return on equity. And greater diversity also, I believe, fosters a much better agility when we're responding to those economic or geopolitical challenges. And look, on the culture point, a diverse board is a signpost to the world of the commitment to inclusion and ESG. And this absolutely helps attract and retain talent. Employees are demonstrably more engaged when leadership reflects the broader workforce, and diverse boards contribute to that inclusive workplace culture.
Yeah.
And that's across, all of the key areas of board diversity, of course, gender, but, ethnicity, cultural, age, generational, cognitive, professional experience. But look, in terms of gender diversity specifically, things have improved. Referencing the report you mentioned at the beginning, Sarah, the recent FTSE, the Women's Leaders Review,
Yeah.
It tells us that female NED representation amongst that FTSE 350 has increased from about 11% in 2011 to almost 50% in 2025, and I'll take that.
Yeah, we've made great progress, and I think there's been a lot of work done from the pioneers and the champions, people like you, Tara, as well, and Rachel, with setting up your organisation. But Rachel, you must have seen the landscape change massively in the 13 years since you've been running Women on Boards.
Oh, massively. You can swing both ways in this discussion. On one hand, I can sit here and say I am so proud of what's happened in the last decade. And we're right. Tara's just giving you one of the key stat there. We went from 9% in 2011 female representation in the FTSE 350 to 43% today. So that is incredible, and we've done that with targets. We've done that with this is the business community that has done this with the support of government, no doubt about it. So we can be very positive, and the landscape has changed. If I look at the public sector is so diverse. Those public bodies fight really hard to make sure they have diverse boards, and they are achieving it. They sorted out gender parity years ago. They moved on 5-6 years ago to the broader diversity landscape. So, hats off to them. So the landscape is, yes, it's in a much better place. However, I can swing to the other side. have to fight so hard to maintain those numbers. And the risk is that we will just sit back and go, that's almost there, job done. And that is not good enough. You only have to lose one person on a board for those statistics for an individual board to go significantly backwards. In the economic geopolitical environment that we all know that we're living in at the moment, we've got massive challenges. So we're going to have to work incredibly hard to keep those numbers as high as they are. The other thing I would say in terms of the landscape, you only have to look outside the FTSE 350 to see some alarming statistics. And there are reasons for it. This is not straightforward. But if you look at the AIM market, and if you look at companies in AIM, they are nowhere near gender parity. But there are very good reasons for that. We're not here to beat organisations up. But the bigger you look, the bigger the lens, the broader the lens, you will see issues. And as I say, it's all about making sure we keep the momentum. And it would be lovely one day if we weren't talking about diversity on boards, we're just talking about equality and making sure we have excellence from everyone and not having to dig deep into those numbers.
Yeah, I think that's a really useful point. And I think also following on from that, it'd be really interesting to see what impact would be on the next rung down if they had similar targets in place to the FTSE 350,
Absolutely.
Because undoubtedly that has generated that momentum where it's coming from the government.
Yeah,
the pressure's there, and they've got
the pressure's
responsibilities. They've got to report on it as well.
Yeah.
Just switching in the last kind of 20 minutes or so that we've got, just in terms of practical steps that people can take to obtain a board role from the beginning, and we did talk about this a little earlier. How early do you think somebody, Tara, should start looking at their NED journey and thinking and strategizing and networking to obtain that role? When is the optimal time to begin that process?
It's a really good question. I think, if the NED route is a focus, then I think it's important to start thinking about that once you have achieved a certain level of seniority, that you can be confident that what you bring into that boardroom is going to add value, dependent on the industry that you're going to be targeting. And that level will, you've had a strategic role, budgetary, P&L people. Is it ever too early? Probably, yes, to start thinking about that. I certainly, from my own personal perspective, I was in my earlier mid-career, I was so focused on building my business, I wouldn't have even entertained the thought. I think it comes with the experience and expertise in your industry, in your role, and when you achieve that level of seniority, that option just suddenly it presents before you. Through your network or through your understanding of what may come next. But when you do start thinking about it, I think it's really important to have a mentor. But also, I would always advise starting to seek out a sponsor within your business. And there is a difference, isn't there, between a mentor and a sponsor? And that sponsor is someone who's going to be internal at your firm, who's aware of your ambition to achieve seniority and will support it. And I think that's one of the good foundations of supporting yourself and your development by getting that in place as soon as possible.
And joining networks, joining organizations.
I think it's almost implicit that if you're going to be an NED, you have got to start your networking journey early. And in every industry, there are lots and lots of opportunities to that. It's often just about putting your head above the parapet, and you'll see them very clearly.
Thank you, Tara. And Joanna, you talked about the importance of a network and how your network runs a book club, and it is a lot broader than just supporting on the NED journey. How important have you found it, and what can you do to cultivate a network if you haven't already kind of embarked on that process?
So I think it's absolutely vital and cannot underestimate the importance of a network. And your network will change as well. So when I started engaging with women on boards 7 odd years ago, I don't think I put in enough into that network to be able to be of benefit to me. That was a reflection on my engagement. I just wasn't perhaps attending the events or, meeting people up separately, etc., like that. But now I can certainly see the more you put into your network, and it isn't necessarily just about a club or a professional network. It is your entire network, your executive network, you know, the people perhaps were at your workplace, your former boss from maybe 3 positions ago. Where are they? What are they doing? You need to cultivate your network and put in and help others out just as much as perhaps you would like to take from the network. I'm part of a WhatsApp group, and the number of questions that come up, even on this network, and sometimes you can help. So you put in the information, because you never know when your time is in need as well. So you just definitely invest. It's a very important part.
I think that's the overwhelming message from today, isn't it? About the importance of a network, and to start that. And it's never too early to start with your professional network for whatever reason. I guess you just don't know when you might need it or what it might be useful for down the track. But just in terms of practical tips and starting this journey, for anyone who's on this call who wants to be an NED, how do you actually go about it? You know, Rachel, where do you start from a recruitment perspective? Do you register with agencies? Obviously you tap into your network? Do you apply for jobs? You know, how are these roles advertised? How do you find appointments?
Gosh, I mean, it's, again, we touched on this earlier. At the beginning, it's question after question after question, and you have to be prepared to put the investment of time in that process. One thing just to say, the vast majority, even to this day, the vast majority of board roles go through your network. So as much, and that is reality. So as much as we work tirelessly to open up the pool and to get organisations to advertise transparently, your network, and Joanna summarised it really well there. When we talk about network, it's you know, you have to be a strategic networker. You have to be prepared to do it. It's not just about joining an organisation like Women on Boards. It's thinking strategically about the people you've worked with. It's about having an elevator pitch. We do a session on developing your board elevator pitch. And when people come along, they go, why do I need to do this? I know who I am. Well, the whole point is you probably know who you are brilliantly as executive you and what you do in your day job or as entrepreneurial you. But do you know who you are as a potential NED candidate? Probably not. So having an elevator pitch, a non-exec elevator pitch in your back pocket, I would say, is one of the first things you have to do. So when you walk into a room, and we're all doing, I've never known so many International Women's Day events this year. It's brilliant. But we have to walk into those rooms and we have to say to ourselves, right, I'm in non-exec mode now. And you have to literally talk to people and think, this is what I'm interested in. This, and it goes back to the points we made earlier. Start thinking about what your skills are. Start thinking about what you care about. Start thinking about, it's almost, I call it your positioning statement. Well, who am I? How confident am I that I'm ready to take a board role? What am I interested in? And Tara, I'm totally not disagreeing with what you're saying about the point where at what point do you start? Because I think everyone's unique. Everyone has a story to tell. So I do think that you're never too young to think about the boardroom. But I'm not talking about stepping into corporate land here. I'm talking about finding a trustee position on a charity, or thinking about your small local housing association or a sports body. I mean, who would have known that every single sport on this planet is governed? There is an opportunity out there. So my advice would be start thinking about it now. But if you're thinking about, you know, if you're strategic and you're thinking about where you want to be in 5-10 years time, and those more serious corporate roles are what you're thinking about, then it might not be now. As I say, it might be in 5 years time. But sowing the seeds now, I would say, is a good thing to do. And then it's asking yourself those questions and starting the practical steps, all from developing your own elevator pitch to creating a board CV, creating a non-exec board CV, which for some people will make them shiver at the prospect. It's bad enough having your exec CV, your LinkedIn. I'm now telling you, you need a board CV.
And why is that important?
I think the reason it's important is it's it's giving you the opportunities to start talking about yourself. We're brilliant at talking about corporate us, what we do, what our role is. There are plenty of senior HR professionals in the room today, general counsels and phenomenal lawyers. And we're very good at talking about what we do. What we have to do, and why a board CV is the beginning of this, we're starting to ask you to think about you and your transferable skills. What are your achievements? What have you accomplished? And when you start switching the language into, we've heard some of it today. Joanna talked about relationship management, stakeholder management, business transformation. If you start thinking and shifting your language into what's behind me as a senior HR professional, what's behind me as a general counsel or as a company secretary, that language shifts and we start to talk in a different way, and that's your board CV. It's almost your exec CV turned on its head in the simplest terms.
And very focused on your soft skills.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I wonder if you have any templates, Rachel, might be useful to share that.
Absolutely.
Afterwards, because
Absolutely.
as a starting point for anyone who is looking at how firstly to carve out time to do an exec CV, but where do you actually start? What does good look like? I think that'd be really useful to the audience. Thank you. Very conscious of time. We've got just under 10 minutes left. Just in terms of advice and reflection, we've covered so many different points, and I feel that we could actually talk all morning on this topic because there's so much to cover. Joanna, can you just give one lesson or piece of advice that you have found has been really pivotal for your career that you think the audience might be interested in hearing?
Yeah. So I'm going to say, I'll be cheeky. I'm going to say two things, but
Please,
it resonates with everything everyone has said so far in this hour. Work out what your golden thread is. What makes you unique? What makes you special? This will be the foot that you can use to go forward, and then use that within your network. Please do not underestimate the power of your network. So like Rachel said, a lot of board roles do come about through your network. There may well be a headhunter involved, but you will hear about the role from your network, and you need to have those insights.
Thank you. Tara, what about you? What's one piece of advice that's been important to you that you'd like to share?
Yes, I have got. I had a really particularly pivotal piece of advice that I was given when I was embarking on this, on my NED and portfolio career. And it always has stuck with me. And it's more really emboldening your psychological state. And someone said to me, Tara, remember that you will have forgotten more than most people know when you go into that boardroom. Now, whilst that is, of course, not always the case, although it certainly is some of the time, it was that piece of advice that it really emboldened me to bring that confidence in my experience and my expertise into any boardroom, and being happier then to push myself out of any of my own preconceived comfort zones and really take up my space as that NED. And that's always stuck with me.
And does that help from a confidence perspective as well?
Yes, I think it speaks to that. It's about emboldening you outside of what are always preconceived comfort zones, aren't they? But it allows you to push yourself out of that. And like that for me was always interesting, something that always stayed with me and stays with me.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Rachel, what about you? You've given so much advice, but
I was going to say, I'm trying to pick one that we haven't, because everyone's giving such brilliant advice. I'm going to throw one in there that may surprise people, but don't take rejection personally. Okay, so this is a hugely competitive world. And certainly once you're starting to build those non-exec roles and getting into the private sector, there are lots of us, men and women, obviously, looking to take these opportunities. So it is competitive. And we as an organisation give telephone hugs all day, every day, with people going, I absolutely thought I was a shoe-in for that role. What happened? I didn't even get an interview. It is all part of the journey. You can't, it is competitive, and it is all about getting yourself match fit, obviously, and getting yourself in the best possible place. But if you don't get a role, if you don't get an interview, don't take it personally. If you don't get the role and you've had an interview, You could say it's personal because you were down to the last two and you were the one that wasn't chosen. But hey, it'll only be because somebody else just had a little bit more of what they were looking for than you. So brush yourself down and keep going would be my advice.
Resilience.
Resilience.
Yeah. We are almost out of time. We've got 5 minutes left. So we're just going to turn to questions from the audience. And thank you so much for everybody who has contributed. There have been some great questions coming in. The first one, Rachel, I'd like to give to you. How important is your first NED role? This audience member has been approached for a NED role in a startup, but has been advised that it would limit future roles. So how important is that decision making about what you choose the first time?
Yeah, I mean, look, it's vital. I think for many reasons, whether it's your first role or any role, but first of all, do your due diligence. If it's a startup, please take your time, look long and hard about whether this is an opportunity that really works for you. Can you commit to it? There is nothing worse than joining a board and 6 months later thinking, I need to step away. It's not good for you. You won't feel good about it. And potentially it might not be good for your reputation, of course. So think long and hard about it. The first role is important for you. It's important for as a stepping stone. It's important for many different reasons. I think a startup is a fantastic first role. It could be a brilliant opportunity to really dig deep into governance, but set your parameters. Any role, be very clear on what you will commit, because you will be uber enthusiastic and you'll end up giving 3 or 4 more time than you ever thought you would. So be very careful.
Thank you. Joanna, the next question is for you. How do you know if you've got the right attributes to be a NED?
Oh, that's a really tough question, a brilliant question. I'm not sure there is a particular right person or right attribute. I think going back to what Rachel has said, there are different roles for different stages, partly of your career. So I can even see shadow boards. You know, they're not the main board, but they're for much more junior people starting and embarking on their career. So how can you say that you do or do not have an attribute to be on a shadow board if you're in your 20s or if you're in your 30s? Your voice is vital. I would say, however, as any board, there are different skills that you will need to develop depending on where you are on your journey. So governance has come up several times over the course of the last hour, and understanding governance is vital, but you don't need to be a lawyer. You don't need to have had a degree in law, but as a director, you will need to understand your responsibilities in the role that you perform.
Thank you. And final question, Tara, you mentioned mentorship earlier. How do you even start looking for a mentor?
That you can definitely never start too early. I think it's got to be someone that you is going to add value to you, and I think that looks and feels in different ways. It's going to be someone that you admire, that you know has achieved a level of seniority or a level of professionalism, specifically in the area that you're interested in for your own personal career development. Someone who's going to challenge you, someone that is going to it's not going to make things desperately comfortable for you. That is going to be someone who is going to be part of that development journey. And I think that's often the real pivotal thing, that challenging piece, because it's relatively easy to find someone who isn't necessarily going to challenge you. But I think that's a really important part. And I think sometimes we think they need to be within our organization, which isn't the case at all. I think your sponsor needs to be within your organization. From a mentor perspective, look wide, look broad, develop a really strong network on LinkedIn is a good platform. Developing a personal brand on LinkedIn is really important, because never underestimate the power of your activity on LinkedIn as your own, taking your personal brand out into a relevant market space and interacting with people on there that you could identify as possible mentors. Look wide, keep the search wide, whether that's industry, geographic, company, you know, keep it wide. And you know, and it's, again, we talk about networking a lot, don't we? It's part, you know, that you know, developing that skill set, and mentors will come.
Do you recommend asking someone to be a mentor and formalizing it that way, or just letting it evolve?
I don't think there's any harm in asking someone to be a mentor. If you've identified someone and you've developed, you know, the starting of a relationship with them, asking that question, you know, to Rachel's point, never be offended if the people say no, because it will be a genuine reason. But no, I think it's absolutely to be encouraged to ask people to be a mentor.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. We are out of time. This has gone so quickly, but thank you all so much for joining us today and for this inspiring conversation, and a heartfelt thanks to our incredible panelists for sharing your journeys, your insights, your wisdom, all your learnings. It's been really enlightening, I'm sure, for everybody on this call, just to hear about your experiences and also the impacts that you have all made as NED. So thank you, Tara, Joanna and Rachel. Really grateful for your contributions.
Thank you.
And to everybody who's joined in and who's listened, thank you so much again. As we celebrate International Women's Day, we need to remember that progress really starts with empowering one another and creating pathways for future leaders, networking. I don't think we could have emphasised that enough, but the power of your network, you know, your network starts here as well. So do link in with all of the panelists, do connect with people in that wider community. And to the aspiring female NEDs in our audience, you know, your voice is needed, your perspective is really valuable, and also your potential is limitless. So I think together we need to continue to champion diversity, to challenge barriers, and to inspire that next generation. You know, we mentioned that it's never too young to start, and you know, Joanna mentioned shadow boards, and look around you at your community, you know, internally and externally, and those people that you can support and bring up through the ranks, because we want to help women take their rightful place in the boardroom, and together we can really drive this meaningful change. So thank you for joining us here today, and here's to building a more inclusive future. Happy
Thanks, Sarah.
International Women's
Thanks,
Day.
everybody.
Bye.